Yo, sup? It's your boy NY3 from DN. Today will be the first part of 7 parts to showcase my Zings Zephyr deck. Now, part 1 is going to be mostly introduction and lore into the Zings archetype, whereas part 2 would be the lore and introduction to the Zephyr archetype, just to make sure we're all on the same page once we get to the interesting combo videos and all that. So the Zings consists of 14 main deck cards and 3 extra deck cards. Now, we are very fortunate that this archetype contains about 15 out of 17 playable cards, which is always a nice thing. No one's getting left out, well, mostly no one. The Zings have a shared theme where the non-tuners give the synchro boss monsters passive buffs, making them harder to kill or more aggressive, whereas the tuners have effects that improve board presence. Now, the Zings in the lore, in the dual terminal lore, are created by Constellar Sombre, or they're called by Constellar Sombre into the dual terminal world, and all of them are half dragons and half something else. The Zings have central themes of quick synchroing on your opponent's turn, for example, formula synchron type effects, as well as another centralized theme of floating, so that when they're destroyed from the grave, you can special summon another Zing with a different name from your deck, so that's great defensive power. Now, unfortunately, Zings do have the capability of missing the timing, which I will get in probably in another video. Let's just get into the archetype. I've ordered these cards in order of importance from least important to most important, so let's just get into it. First off, the most useless card, not even I could find a use for this, is Zing Unleashed. It forces all your opponent's monsters into attack position, as well as letting your guys synchro on your opponent's turn, which they already do, but just with non-Zing monsters. It's 2 effects that are not worth a card, so yeah, it's just not really worth a card. The next card that I would run 0 of is Zing Brutality. It doubles the attack of a Zing monster and destroys it after damage calculation. Yeah, it's another pretty much -1 card that doesn't do much, so it's not really worth running. Now we're getting into the cards that you could potentially run 1 of. Zing Creation. Zing Creations turn your non-floating monsters, so any monsters in the game, into a floater, and it turns your floaters into monsters that float twice as hard. So when your monsters are destroyed, you summon an additional Zing from your deck. 1 more than you should. Zing Prana. Zing Prana is another interesting card. It has 4 different effects based on how many attributes of Zing monsters you have in your graveyard. The first one being gaining 500 attack, the second one protecting Zings from destruction by sacrificing Prana itself. The next one is preventing your opponents from setting monsters. And the final one nukes both players' board, just destroys everything. So with 4 different unique effects, it's a great utility card that you can search out with one of our Zing monsters that I will get into later on. Now, these Zing Creation and Zing Prana are potential 1-offs. They're both alright support cards. Getting into our first Zing monster, Pulau Wind of the Zing. Now, this is a half dog, half dragon guy who can make your synchros immune to the effects of all spell cards. Now, immunity to spell cards isn't too important most of the time. Furthermore, his stats are the worst of all our Yang Zings. He is also a level 1, which makes it very difficult to synchro with. Plus, you cannot pendulum summon it because there are no current scale 0 pendulums. It just makes him very difficult to use, so he's another one of those run 0 to 1-offs. Now, unfortunately, he is also the only wind type Yang Zing, and the attributes matter when we get into our boss monsters. Taotai, Shadow of the Yang Zing. Now, he has the most useless buff. Being half dragon, half ogre, his buff resists the change of control of a synchro monster you synchro using him. So that buff is really specific and can be easily played around. Now, Taotai is the strongest main deck Yang Zing monster at 2200 attack. It can crash into some annoying things such as Natural Beast or Alshid or Winder. Unfortunately, he is level 5, so if you draw him, you won't be able to normal summon him. He's a great monster to float into just because of his high attack. Also, being level 5 does somewhat accelerate your synchro plays. His level 5 status was kind of important before we got the level 6 guy, but right now, the only sort of reason I would run him or side one of him, is that he's a dark to out problem card such as goes and match. Now with the potential 1-offs done, we get into our 2-offs, or what I recommend at 2-off. Zefraxi, Treasure of the Yang Zing. Now this guy is a pseudo tuner. He can make other Yang Zings or Zephyr monsters into a tuner. This effect is not a direct +1, but it does open up a lot of options, especially when you don't draw the cards you need, because this, being both a Yang Zing and a Zephyr, is highly searchable by both engines. So he gets you there when you don't open that optimally. Also, not only being a Yang Zing and a Zephyr, he is also a scale 1. Definitely gives him even more utility than he already has. Bixie, Water of the Yang Zing. This guy... Oh, by the way, Zefraxi is half horse, half dragon. And Bixie here is half turtle, half dragon. His buff to synchros is that it makes them immune to trap cards. Now, this alone leads me to believe that Yang Zing's is the best skill drain deck to ever exist, pretty much. Yeah, you can run probably 1 of 2 of Bixie in your deck. More 2-ofs in my recommendation is Bien, Earth of the Yang Zing. Now, his buff is one of the best ones, making the synchro monster immune to battle. Now, this is especially important for really small and easy to run over synchros, such as Herald of the Arclight. And yeah, he's a 1600 normal summonable. He puts in the work, even if you don't synchro with him. And another one of our high attack main deck Yang Zing monsters is Suani, Fire of the Yang Zing. Now, Bien being half tiger, half dragon, we have Suani being half lion, half dragon. Suani, Fire of the Yang Zing, is a 1900 floating beast deck. His buffs to synchros is a plus 500 attack and defense, which is very important for some of our OTK combos, which we will go over in another video. Yang Zing Path. Yang Zing Path, it's a Pot of Avarice shuffling back 3 Yang Zing monsters from your graveyard to draw 2 cards. Now, this card can be not ideal to open up with because you'll have no graveyard to activate it, but being a +1 as well as being a searchable card means it's a great 2-of in the deck. You can potentially cut it to 1. It just depends on the format, I guess. Now we're getting into the very important cards, which are our 3-of cards in the main deck. And first up is our first tuner, well, first legit tuner, if you count Zefraxi or not. Chiwen Light of the Yangzing. Chiwen is half fish, half dragon. Not only does it summon another Yangzing from your deck when it is destroyed, like all of our other non-pendulum Yangzings, he is also able to summon himself from the graveyard when another Yangzing is destroyed. He is the Yangzing that you want in the grave. He opens a lot of options depending on if you have him in the grave or not, which we hopefully will get to discover in the later combo videos. Now, our best non-tuner, Zephyr New Secret of the Yangzing. Zephyr Inu is half cow, half dragon, and he's got kind of a satanic look with chopsticks through his neck. At level 6, it pretty much lets us make our boss monsters, which would usually require 3, sometimes maybe even 4 monsters to make, with only 2 monsters. Being level 6 is not his only benefit. He also has 2600 defense, which can be quite a bit of a problem for people to deal with. And even if he does get destroyed in battle or card effect, he can search a Yangzing or Zephyr spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. Also, when he is pendulum summoned, he can search a Yangzing or Zephyr spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. So he is what generates most of the pluses of the deck. And our most important tuner of the deck would be Jiaotu Darkness of the Yangzing. Jiaotu Darkness of the Yangzing is half clam, half dragon. Jiaotu is able to speed up everything you're trying to do. He lets you discard 2 Yangzing cards from your hand to summon 2 Yangzing monsters from your deck, one with 0 attack and one with 0 defense, and is usually what starts off all of the combos. Next up, we have our 3 boss monsters from the extra deck. The first one, we have Chaofeng Phantom of the Yangzing. Chaofeng is a level 9. It has 3 pretty good effects. The first one allows you to lock out the monster effects of any monsters that has the same attribute as what you use to synchro summon Chaofeng with. Same attributes of the Yangzing monsters. This means you can easily stop the effects of any attribute except wind. It's a bit hard to get wind on there because Pulau is our only wind and it's level 1. Its second effect generates a +1 every time you destroy a monster. It lets you summon a Yangzing of the same attribute as what you destroyed once per turn during either player's turn. And the third effect is when Chaofeng is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can add any tuner, and this is any tuner, not Yangzing specific. So this is the generic effect of Chaofeng. So you could be adding Effect Bayless or Ghost Ogre Snow Rabbits when Chaofeng is destroyed. The lore says Chaofeng, Phantom of the Yangzing, is half goat, half dragon, but he doesn't really look like it. He kind of looks half peacock or something instead of a goat, but whatever. Our next synchro monster, Yazi Evil of the Yangzing, half wolf, half dragon, is level 7. He cannot be targeted by any card effects, as well as he is able to pretty much scrap dragon 1 card on their side and 1 Yangzing on your side. So he's kind of a hybrid between Leo and Scrap Dragon. Now with the correct buffs, so unaffected by spells or traps or can't be destroyed by battle, with his original anti-targeting effect, he can be very difficult to get off the board for certain decks. Now what I mostly use Yazi Evil of the Yangzing for in the Yangzing Zephyr hybrid is his third effect, which is when he is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, he can summon any worm-type monster from your deck. What do I do when I can't get to my Zings half of the engine, but can make a Yazi? I just make a Yazi, blow itself up, blow something else up, and special our important tuners such as Gel 2, Darkness of the Zings from the deck and initiate the combo. Now our final boss monster is Baxia Brightness of the Zings, a level 8 synchro monster. Baxia Brightness of the Zings is half snake, half dragon. It's semi-generic. Its requirement is non-tuner worm type monsters. Now what Baxia does is two very important effects for the deck. His stats are not that great at 2300, 2600. You can slightly improve it with buffs such as Swanify of the Zings, or you could make it battle immune to make up for it. But his effect is very devastating for the opponent. He can return cards on the field back to the owner's decks equal to the different attributes of worm type monsters you use to make this guy. So every time you synchro summon a Baxia Brightness of the Zings, you're going to be returning 2 to 3 cards most of the time back to the deck. So synchro summoning Baxia is going to clean out their field, open them up for some of our OTKs. Now Baxia's second effect is a monster reborn for level 4 or lower monsters. In other words, we can bring back some of our tuners used to make Baxia, which means making one Baxia makes half of the second Baxia. Now if you've been following any of my duels on Duel Link Network, you'll find that I summon 3 Baxias quite often. That's because summoning the first Baxia with a couple more cards in my hand, I can synchro summon triple Baxia. And that will be it for all of the Zings cards released to date. Join me in the next video and I will go over some of the Zephyr side of things. So I'll go over the Zephyr cards. I've already gone over the Zings Zephyr cards, but there's 8 other Zephyr guys and some spell and traps that are pretty important to the deck as a whole.